So I want to share something today, and it's a lot different from things in the past, and similar in a sense as well. I want to share with you what's been happening with my life the last 4 or 5 days. What you gain from it will be up to your willingness to hear, your willingness to listen for the voice of God, the direction of God, the instruction of God, the manifestation of God, how He speaks to me, how He speaks to others, how He speaks to us jointly. So, as I mentioned, this past Wednesday, I flew out to Vegas, Wednesday night. Before my plane touched down, I got bad news. And I gave it some thought before I even responded to the individual that delivered the bad news to me. But ultimately, I came to a conclusion, which was that in spite of the negative news that I received, it was so important to make sure that I maintain a positive attitude towards the individual, that things happen in life which are unexpected and problematic and troublesome and vexing and destructive in its nature. But nevertheless, we need to make sure that people are important, and we should have an ear open to what's going on in their life because no one intends to bring us harm most of the time, and no one is desiring to cause confusion most of the time. A lot of situations, it's just a matter of happenstance and a matter of opportunity for us to shine or not to shine. So, in any event, Thursday morning, I got up, I went outside to breakfast, had the breakfast. I spoke with a couple of workers in the following order: Buddy and Tomas. Now, Buddy explained to me about some really tough things that he's going through in life, things that I wouldn't wish on anybody. And I promised him that I would engage in prayer for his physical health. Meanwhile, Tomas interrupted the conversation and began to speak to me in Spanish about how much we are alike and we're givers, and explained to me further circumstance involving divorce from his wife of 25 years, the pain of his heart, which he was masking from others. And I told him, you know, I was in Vegas and I tipped a homeless person named Kevin. And this guy looked at me really intently in my eyes as I kneeled down to tip him. And he said, Minister, if you will get on your knees every day and pray for God to reveal his mission for you, he will make himself so much clearer to you. Now, mind you, I had not told him that I was a minister. And nevertheless, that was exactly what happened. So when I told him the story, he said, Hey, that reminds me of something that happened to me when my wife left me of some 25 years. He said, I was standing here working, and he was telling me in Spanish, and he was saying he was doing a real good job of masking how he felt about things. And there was an old guy, he said, about 30 feet away with a walker, and the guy told him, say, come here, beckoned for him to come over. And he said he went over to the guy, and the old guy with the walker looks up at him and basically said in street lingo, he didn't use street lingo, but he said, stop flipping thinking so much. Get a backbone. Now, Tomas used different language, as I indicated, so I'm breaking it down for you. The old guy said, stop thinking so much. Get a backbone. He said, excuse me? The guy said, you heard what I said. Stop thinking so much. Get a backbone. And said the old guy pointed towards a couple of people standing, a couple of guys standing about 60, 70 feet away and were paraplegics. He said, you look at them, do you see them two guys over there? Do you think your life is worse off or better off than theirs? Stop thinking so much and and get a backbone. So I talked a few minutes, and I got in the cab. The lady in the cab, her name is Michelle. Before we left out of the parking lot, this lady started telling me about what was going on in her life. I gave her some words of encouragement, and before we reached the destination a mile away, this lady was crying. I sat there parked next to the restaurant, and I spoke with her a little bit and gave her some words of advice. I ate my breakfast, and then I left the restaurant. And later on that afternoon, I took a cab from Paris, Las Vegas, which is across from Bellagio, to head downtown. The first thing I noted was that there was a 7 on the car in front of me, and there was a 7 on the car to my left. 7s appear in my life a lot, but I noticed this immediately. As we approached downtown, the cab driver volunteered to me that they'd been driving for 43 years. At the time that they were talking to me or telling me that they'd been driving for 43 years, I was speaking with my buddy Carly on the phone, and I was telling him that one of my notes I'd put up that day or the day before was commitment to the process in spite of adversity, that no matter what it is that God has in front of us, we've got to be committed to that process no matter what adversity is in between. That Jesus, in spite of the fact that the crucifixion and the grave lay waiting for him, he yet performed, he yet obeyed, he yet served God, served us in complete obedience to the voice of God and complete service to us for our salvation in spite of what he was facing next. And so later on that evening, as I said, I'm taking this cab, and just before we get downtown, the cab driver tells me he's been driving for 43 years. I say, now that's amazing, and I tell Carly, hey Carly, man, I wonder what kind of algorithm God operates on. And Carly goes, his algorithm is out of this world. I go inside, I get out of the cab downtown. I witness to the cab driver. He's receptive to the witness. I go inside the building, one of the casinos, Binion's, to eat my lunch, dinner there, actually. And a guy sits down next to me, and before I know it, he's volunteered that he's been married to his wife 43 years. Now, there's 7. Now, 7 for me are significant. I can just go back years and show you the manifestation in my life. But in any event, I wound up witnessing to this guy, and he's very receptive. His name is David. Well, the cab driver's name was Elias, if you want to know it. In any event, I left from Binion's, and I walk outside, and I get in a cab, and before it could even move, I said, you might as well tell me how long you've been driving this cab. He said, 16 years. And I said, isn't that surprising? These 7s just keep on coming. And this guy, Robel, gave me a verse from the Bible. He said, don't be too surprised. It's the manner of the Spirit. You and I have the same spirit, and so we have a mutual relationship. Now, what was amazing about that was I had sent a text message that morning to a friend of mine in which I said to them that my life, I feel, is in a good place, but there is some disorder. There are some interactions that come my way, and the flow is not the flow of oneness that I want from the love of God. It doesn't resonate as being completely lined up with the Spirit of God, and I've got to get these things in order. Well, Robel used the very same word I'd use. I use a mutuality of relationship. And I was stunned by the fact that he used the same word that I had used earlier. And of course, he gave me the answer. That's just Jesus working in you and working in me, and he guided us together for this moment. Understand? He guided us together for this moment, and it's to his glory. So he dropped me off at the hotel, And I walked through the hotel, and a lady recognizes me at one of the dealers, and I go to say hello to her, and there's a fella standing there, and she tells him, hey, it's Eric, you know. And the guy goes, well, I don't know Eric. His name was Dimitri. He goes, I don't know Eric. And she tells him, well, I'm sorry for you. And I go over and introduce myself, and just because of the way the sevens had been popping up the entire day, I said, "What's your date of birth?" And he gives me a month and year, 1977. And I wind up witnessing to him. I leave the witness with him, and I head to the private club area. It's off the main floor where people can gamble with a little bit more relaxation without dealing with the heavy traffic. And I see a couple, three of the waitresses there, and they're standing there, and I talk with them because I know them. I introduced myself to one that was new. I didn't know her, but two I did know, and they want to know what's been going on with me. And I told them writing a book, and about that time I say, but you know, I've learned that the most important thing for me, or the thing that drives me or motivates me so much, is that I want to be one with the next person. Oneness is what I want. I want an easy flow, no push, no pull, just a seamless manifestation of the love of God. About this time, a guy walks up named Dennis, and he shakes my hand, and I'd made this statement about oneness, and Dennis just says, well, just stay away from negative energies, and you'll be one, right? Well, he goes back behind the bar. He's the bartender. I walk over, and I sit down, and there's a guy sitting there, and he reminds me a lot of myself. He explained that he's the final say on credit extension, and he's a no-nonsense kind of guy. I'm thinking he's a lot like me. So I finally asked, what's your date of birth? He goes, uh, the 23rd. The 23rd. The 23rd of March. Well, my birthday is the 22nd. And I'm like, wow. I said, I was sitting here thinking, man, this guy is a lot like me. Um, and sure enough, our birthdays are one day apart. And I said, well, what's your wife's name? And he goes, Michelle. Well, Michelle was the name of the cab driver earlier that was crying. Now, this is in the evening, and I said to myself, I said, there's no way. It's absolutely no way. All the things that are strange and out of the ordinary that have happened on this day, there's no way that his name is the same as the lady that, the first lady in the cab that I got in, and her crying and witnessing to her and her receptiveness to it. And so I said, what's her date of birth? And he goes, 5/5/69. Immediately I heard 25. I heard 7. And so I took the time to witness to him, and this guy begins to cry. I gave him a hug, and we chatted for a while. Now, the significant thing about this particular guy is that he was an executive at the casino whose position was the position of some significant authority. He was a man of substance and authority in at least in that corporate environment. And it's been my experience that individuals like that are quite guarded with their emotions and certainly with their public responses. And nevertheless, this guy did not hesitate, or the word reached his heart, and he responded accordingly. Now, on Friday, I sent a letter to a friend, and this is the context of that letter. It will provide further understanding of the things that I've shared and things that are to come. It's an interesting period for me, you know. I've got so much alone time I could sell it. The sevens continued on this day. It's beyond the realm of the natural. It seemed to me on this day that I just now realized the truth not previously understood consciously by me. The sevens are a reflection of God's constant statement to me that He expects me to trust Him and to rest in Him. He desires for me to trust Him to be God, to trust Him to provide for me, and to trust Him to rest in Him. On this day, I've listened as part of a message on the mystery of the number of seven. See, I'd watched a television program earlier because the seventh, I said, man, I need to do a little research on this. What is the significance of these sevens? Now, the rabbi talked about the miracles of Jesus feeding the 5,000 with 5 loaves of bread and 2 little fish. And in the Old Testament, God tested the people coming out of Egypt to prove that they truly trusted in Him. Now, passing the test gets one to the next spiritual level. Passing of the test is based on spiritual victory and submission. My way of doing things in the past is no longer viable. God has made it clear that He provides for my daily sustenance. Me always looking 3 and 4 months ahead to some degree shows a lack of trust in God. He's provided more than enough for my daily sustenance. It is disrespectful to the provision to fail to recognize it and to rejoice in God's mercies. Focusing on the natural abilities can rob us of blessings. After all, God encourages us to trust Him daily. Last year was difficult, yet God provided. It is imperative that I adjust my mindset. In the scripture, we're encouraged to set our affections on Him. That means an affirmative relationship based on positive steps towards Him. Looking back, I see that God understands more than us that our fleshly desires will undoubtedly interfere with our ability to see the spiritual requirements that He demands of us. Of those who much is given, much is required. So on this 29th day of March, I've come to realize that the abundant nature of the 7 means that His call is becoming louder and more urgent. In such moments, our enthusiasm and attention to detail must be king. It is imperative that we pay attention to the pathway. These moments of God's voice speaking so urgently is a reflection of change on the horizon. It is my belief that a great breakthrough is coming. My spiritual vision is becoming clearer and clearer. It is my belief that an amazingly impactful ministry is available for my service. I've just got to get out of my way. The flesh has got to yield. I must decrease, He must increase. That is always a call that we must meet if we intend to serve in a great capacity. Now, also, please note that because of the intensity of the 7s, it is also a reflection of spiritual urgency. Time is essential. God's time is God's time. I have wasted it. It's time to be fruitful in all aspects. It is good time to listen. Hearing is one thing, listening is another. In these instances, we must adjust our prayer life. Our prayer life must reflect the urgent matters of the spirit and heart. These lessons must be learned. The test must be passed. Nothing less is acceptable. Often I find myself utilizing, and this is to my friend, our conversations to teach others. You may ask why. I answer that all of our issues in life are common. We are not always happy. We're not always enthusiastic. We're not always aware of our spiritual status. Sometimes it takes a shake-up or an epiphany to bring us to the brink of understanding. Last July, the homeless man who knew more about me than I had ever revealed to him said, "Minister, you need to get on your knees and pray every day and ask God to show you His vision for you and His mission for you, and He will make it clear to you." And afterwards, I run into a maid that tells me, "Hey, God just told me He commanded you to write a book, and He wants to know why you haven't done it." God knew the reason. He also knew the solution. The solution to any change, any challenge, is always with Him, with Jesus, with the Holy Spirit, through His angel. In other words, I have been instructed repeatedly to move in faith, knowing that I'm God's workman, not only rightly dividing the word of truth, but serving Him in obedience and respect. It is clear that I've got much to achieve. It would be a tragedy for me to fail to yield myself to God. I must. Everything is at stake for me. Loving God means submitting to God. This much I believe. On Thursday, His word pierced the heart of 2 strangers, the woman Michelle in the beginning of the day and the guy at the end of the day, and they both shed tears, perhaps of joy, perhaps of relief, perhaps because of the confirmation of God's connection to their life. The word does its work. I know that God desires His word to reach men. Our, our failure to conform our behavior, our minds, and our spirits to God has consequences. Love desires the best for others. The best is always centered in God. The world is distracting. It feeds us a mirage of happiness and blinds us from truth. Choose the right door. Choose the right path. Understand that the choices of love and truth are before us daily. Now, on Friday, now that was just like laying out the foundation of what was going to happen next, because the very next day, Friday morning, I just get up, I relax all day, and then in the afternoon, I decide to take a cab over to Mandalay Bay. Now, as I'm talking to Buddy, the guy who had all of the pain that I didn't tell you what it is for, but you would not want the pain that he's enduring. A guy walks up and starts talking about how the casino is now charging independent limo drivers $77.25 as a fee. And I immediately noted it was 7, 7, and 25, and 2 and 5 was 7. Well, immediately as I noted that, Buddy goes, "Hey, Eric, look, the cab is pulled up and it's 777." And I yapped just a bit with him, and then a cab comes, and I get in the cab, and it's a lady. Her name is Lomi. As we're leaving the facility, leaving Bellagio's property, I asked the lady what her name means, and she says lemon. It's a African name, and I looked it up, and it did mean lemon, and it was associated with a proverb that said, "One lemon is for one person, and 50 lemons for one person is a burden." And for whatever reason, immediately in my spirit, I was just like, hey, that makes me think about myself, that I've got this word, and God has he's been talking to me for over 20 years, and he's put so much in me, and it's just bubbling and just trying to get out. And I said, it's just like it seems to me that God, with all of these things that are happening, just really wants me to stand on the mountaintop and tell the world that I have his anointing and I have his word, and you can believe it, you can receive it, but it is what it is. And then I decided, let me look and see if there's another meaning for this lady's word, name, Lomi, Lomi. And sure enough, there was another meaning supplied by someone in Nigeria, and they said it means the light shines in darkness. Well, I get to Mandalay Bay, I play for a bit, and then I leave there, and I get in a cab, and the guy's name is Berhanu, Berhanu. I ask him, what does it mean? And he tells me it means his light. In Hebrew, I look it up, that's exactly what it meant, his light. So I get back to Bellagio, I go through the casino, and I go to bed and watch basketball games, and then I come downstairs and I go to play craps, and I never play craps, and they slide 5 dice over to me, and there's 5 dice, it's 6, 6, 2, 1, 1. Immediately I added that up, that's 16. That's a 7. I reached down and I grabbed a 2 because they're similar, but I'm thinking of the fact that the lady's cab I'd gotten into earlier, the name meant light in the darkness, and the next guy's cab, his name meant Berhanu, his name meant his light. And so I'm thinking in my mind that they're 2 of a kind, so take the 2 dice that are the same kind. And so I pick them up and I look at them, and there's a 4 and a 3. And by the way, God just gave me something to share with you. Be of the same mindset, of the same kind, like Moses and the ark, 2 of a kind. So we want to be of one accord. How can 2 walk together unless they agree? So I picked it up and I see a 4 and a 3, and I immediately think, oh my goodness, are you kidding me? So I throw the dice for a while, and in fact, I don't even throw dice, but I knew I wasn't going to crap out. And when I did crap out, it was most amazing because I made a sound as I threw those dice. Before that moment, every time I threw it, I was happy. In fact, one time I said, give me the number you want, and I literally threw the number. Someone said a 9. I threw the 9. just like that. I had no doubt that I was going to throw those dice and I wasn't going to crap out. But that moment that that negative came out of my throat, I knew. And sure enough, it was a 7, crapped out. So I walked away from there and I went and I sat at a bar where a guy over there, associate of mine, was working. And I noticed a guy trying to pay his tab, and yet his card kept getting declined. I thought about having my associate put it on my room because I know they're gonna comp, they're gonna comp my meals for me. But then I said, Eric, mind your business. And the next thing I know, mind your business. Yes, Lord. Eric, mind your business. The next moment, we need to stay focused on God's business, okay? Mind his business. That is your business. As Jesus said, I must be about my Father's business. I know this is a little unconventional message, but listen, you'll get something out of it. And so I, listening, Dennis, or I'm sorry, not Dennis, I forgot the guy's name. But anyway, this guy tells the fella, he goes, hey, we can put it on your room. What's your room number? And the fellow goes 15079, 15th floor, room 79. Immediately, I hear 16 and 9 and a 716. I hear 7, 6 and 1. So I asked this guy, hey, excuse me, what's your name? And he goes, his name is Sandeep, Sandeep. I looked it up. It meant one who brings the light. One who brings the light. And so in a quick instance, I witnessed to Sandeep. When I finished the quick witness to him about what I knew that God had revealed to me about him, he received it. He went about his business. Immediately, the associate, the bartender says, Eric, hey, my birthday's 10/10/77. And so I share with him what happened the previous night with the lady in the cab and the executive and that whole scenario. And so I sit there a minute and I tell the associate, hey man, I'm going to my room because I got to go take some notes about all these things that have been happening, and I don't want to forget any of these people's names. Well, before I even got to my room, I wound up witnessing to the security guard as I was being led to witness to him. And in fact, I wondered, why am I talking to this guy and telling him what I'm telling him? But God gave me the understanding, and I shared it with him. And the message was, with a Spanish phrase, cuando un hombre estaba quemado con leche caliente, cada vez cuando se vea una vaca se llora. It says when a man is burnt with hot milk, every time he sees a cow, he cries. And he said, well, I don't quite understand it. I said, I'm good to my girlfriend. I said, if you take a nail, if I tell you hold this nail with your right hand and you're holding it, and I hit your finger, hit your thumb, and then I tell you grab the other nail with your other hand and hold it, will you do it? He said, no. I said, exactly. I said, sometimes we go through things in life, and the things that we go through actually will poison us with regard to our current interactions with others. We will be a little gun shy. We will draw back a little, and that will not be of God. It's simply poison in our system. God wants us to operate and be true to the internal person that he's created us to be. And that's why things that are contrary to you will certainly aggravate you, but you cannot allow those things that have aggravated you in the past, that have been contrary to the dynamic of you, to keep you from being who you are supposed to be. And then I went on to my room. He said, oh, he got that. He understood that. I said, now it's not just for you to get it and understand it. It's also for you to apply it. When you know better, do better. When you know better, do better. So when God is speaking to you and guiding you and telling you to do things a certain way, then you listen to him and you do it. That's why this message is, in fact, a little bit different than other messages. And we're going to get all the way through it because we're going to cover all of the days. So the next morning, I got up and I walked around a bit, and I wound up taking a drive, and the driver's name was Marvin, and I asked him what it meant, and it meant God is gracious. And I go inside the casino there, and I talked with the guy there. His name is Osiris. And I'm like, well, what does your name mean? He said something like powerful or great. In fact, it does. And then I said, man, tell me, please, that you don't have a 7 in your name. And needless to say, he did. He did. Everybody had a 7 in their name, in their date of birth. I'm sorry. So around noon, I walked over to Paris, Las Vegas. Couple of things happened in that instance. The first thing was that morning, a Sunday morning, pastor back home had posted a picture of a certain vehicle. It was a uniquely shaped pickup, uniquely shaped, and it was black. And I was thinking, wow, that's a uniquely shaped pickup and cute at that. And I'm walking outside of Bellagio, and there's a guy literally parked on the side with a pickup looking just like the pickup I had seen from the pasture back home. So I stopped. I said, you mind if I take a picture of your pickup? And the fellow said, yeah, you can. And I asked him, I said, where are you from? And he said, Clarksville, Texas. I said, man, Clarksville, Texas is just a little place outside of Paris, Texas. I said, my sister-in-law is from Clarksville, Texas. Could I get your number? He gave me his number. He gave me a number and his name. I called my sister-in-law that night, and sure enough, it was one of her relatives. Now, the only reason I actually stopped was because of the fact that it was so out of the ordinary to see the first vehicle and yet hear the second vehicle. And all this guy, he texted me, he said, man, wow, wow, wow. God is good. And he is. So around noon, as I'm at Paris, Las Vegas, trying to find a table, can't find one. I passed and I saw this lady and it caught my attention, but I kept going. I came back and I walked over to the security guard. I said, smiles are contagious. Someone sent me that message about 11, 12 days ago, and about 5 days ago, someone sent me the same message. Smiles are contagious. I said, tell me you don't have a 7 in your date of birth. And she said she did. She did. And I witnessed to her. And not only did I witness to her, I took a picture of her and told her that I'm going to pray for her. And of course, I intend to pray for her for the things that she indicated that she needed in life. Now, on the way back to Bellagio, I've got a flight coming up around 2:30. On my way back to Bellagio, a guy runs over and gives me a hug. His name is John. John says, Eric, you need any help with your bags? And I really didn't need any help, but I said, yes, come up and help me. And he said, I'll see you in 5 minutes. And I made it to my room, and he wasn't there in 5 minutes, and I lollygagged a bit, and he still wasn't there. And I started to leave. I packed my stuff up. I walked out of the room, walked down the hallway, and didn't get too far, and I remembered, hey, you left your jacket. I went back, left the bag outside the door, walked inside to get the jacket, came back to the door, opened the door, and John was right there. I said, you want to walk with me to the main elevator, not the service elevator, since I'm going towards the main elevator? He said, yeah, I'm going with you. Well, as we walked down the hallway, I said, tell me you don't have a 7 in your date of birth. He said, I don't. It's August 17th, 79. I said, man, that's 2 7s. That's a 8 plus the 17 is 25, and the 7 and 9 is 16, and that's a 7 as well. We get on the elevator, and I said, man, this has been the strangest trip because everybody I'm talking to has a 7 in their birthday, one way or another, either the day, either the month, or either the year. It was just like that. Either 79, 77, the 7th to 25th, or July. It was just like that. Every single person. And so we get on the elevator, and we stop on the 28th floor. which is, by the way, it's multiple of seven, 7 times 4. Two people get on, so it's me, John, and these two people that get on. And I look at the couple, and I say, "Tell me," to the guy. I said, "Tell me you don't have a 7 in your date of birth." He said, "I do. It's 97." And so at the bottom of the elevator, at the bottom of the casino level, outside of the elevator, right there in front of the elevator, I witnessed to both John and this guy. And they both received the witness without drawing back from it in any capacity. And the couple proceeded ahead of us, and we walked along. And I said, "John, I want you to take note of what just happened. That's a total stranger. And this conversation that I've had is not an ordinary conversation, but yet it was received with both enthusiasm and engagement." And I said, "Oh, let me go ask this guy his name because I need to get his name for my notes." And I say, "Hey, I walk real fast. Hey, excuse me, could I get your name for my notes?" And he said, "My name is Patrick, and it has 7 letters in it." We get outside Bellagio to get my cab, and John goes, "Hey, Eric, look, your cab is 3040." And it continued. It continued through the airport. It continued on the plane. It continued even this morning just before I started putting this message up. Two fellows at my door, and I asked them. I said, "Tell me you don't have a 7 in your name." And one fellow said, "I do. It's the 17th." And the other fellow said, "I do too. It's the 17th." Now, the significance of that is that it was the same thing yesterday with a 34. And my mother, which I didn't share with her, but I'm going to share it with her in a few. So, nevertheless, in this moment of the most amazing manifestations of God's voice and presence, I would just say this: signs are one thing, obedience is another. God's speaking to us, He's speaking to you. Those of you who have deja vu experiences, it's God speaking. Those of you who've had these weird moments, it's God speaking. Those of you who've heard from God, maybe in singular instances, it doesn't matter. His word is eternal. It is a living word. It's the same yesterday, today, and forever. God's words of encouragement for you, God's blessings for you, His declarations about you, they shall all stand. They shall all come to pass. All we need to do is, like I said, whatever He's given you to do, do it. Whatever He's given you to say it. Whatever He's given you to share, share it. I shared, and I hope that it will bless your understanding. Have a beautiful day.